I hate drywall. This is the actual title of the video. I just figured YouTube wouldn't like it as much. All right, in this video, guys, I'm going to break down how the plasters we used to use were so much better than today's drywall. We're going to talk about what is wrong with drywall and what we can do differently today in our homes to make them healthier and last longer. Let's go back to where history begins, essentially. I think plaster was probably invented pretty fast outside the Garden of Eden, all right? But when we're looking at our records, we can see that in ancient Egypt, we had plaster. There's lime plaster remnants, all right? Another, probably the most famous people for using plaster are the Romans, all right? They've got plaster. They also have their Roman concrete. And they also have Venetian plaster, which I'm sure you've all heard of, which is essentially a lime-based plaster, but they mix colorful marble dust into it, and they finish it real smooth. It has a really beautiful look to it. So we've been using plaster since essentially the beginning of time and all the way up into the modern construction and how we build today. For our modern construction, though, we've got our 2x4 studs, right? We really start doing this in the early 1800s. Chicago seems to be kind of the agreed on birthplace. And to apply our plaster to it, we've got to put some lath up first. So here's our wood lath that I've drawn on. These are thin wood strips, you know, 1.25 1.5 inches wide, and maybe only 1/4 inch thick. They get nailed to the studs, and they purposely have a gap in between. This gap, you know, maybe it's a 1/4 inch or so. And then our plasters can come in, and they're actually going to smear and push our plaster into that lath. They want it to actually go into the lath and then kind of form a hook over the top. This is usually done in 3 coats in its original form, and we're going to get into how gypsum made it an easier process later. First, we've got our scratch coat. They come in and they're pushing it through, all right? We just showed you that. Then at the end of that coat, they actually scratch it. That's why it's called the scratch coat. They take a notch trowel and they run it across to make scratch marks in it so that the next coat will hook into it, all right? That brown coat, they put it on and it builds mass, and it's supposed to get the wall perfectly flat for a thin finish coat, all right? This is mostly done with lime plaster in the US. This is the most popular one, but we'll cover a couple others here real quick. Lime plaster is made from limestone. They actually fire the limestone, and the product that comes away from that, they add water to it. A chemical reaction takes place. Now they have slaked lime, all right? And the slaked lime can be mixed with other ingredients like sand, more water, animal hair, and then they've got plaster, all right? Also could be used for concrete or for mortar. We've also got clay plasters. These are mainly used in the Southwest in America, though, all right? They're oftentimes used over adobe or over stone houses in desert areas. And there's a very specific reason for that I'll get to in just a second. Gypsum plaster, you're familiar with gypsum plaster. Plaster of Paris is gypsum plaster. It becomes real popular in the early 1900s because the US actually has huge gypsum deposits. But each of these has some pros and cons, all right? Let's go starting with lime because it's the most popular in US history by far. Lime plaster has 3 things going for it. 1, it's vapor open, meaning water can dry through it. 2, it chemically sets. So after you mix it all up together, it's going to harden like concrete. And even if you get it wet, it's still going to stay hard. And 3, it is resistant to mold chemically. Like, it chemically fights the mold. Mold does not want to grow on lime-based stuff. Moving on to clay. Clay plaster is also vapor open, and mold doesn't really want to grow on it, but not to the same level of lime, all right? It doesn't have anything in it chemically that resists the mold. It just doesn't have any food for the mold, and that goes for the gypsum plaster too. But the main downside of the clay plaster is that it doesn't chemically harden, all right? If you use clay plaster and you get it wet enough, it will turn back into clay on your wall, which is not optimal, so we wouldn't use it in a bathroom, right? Now, our gypsum plaster has a lot in common with the lime, all right? It does chemically harden, it's vapor open, but it doesn't chemically resist the mold. So out of these 3, lime plaster is kind of the best one, in my opinion. But to see where we start to go wrong, and we go from these walls that could breathe and dry out and resisted mold, we have to look at the lath, actually, all right? So we talked about what this is. It's our wood strips. Well, in the early 1900s, it switches to essentially metal mesh, all right? And then in the early 1930s, it starts switching to gypsum lath, all right? And when I say gypsum lath, We're really just talking about drywall. Let's go take a look down inside of one of my walls, and I'm going to show you exactly what gypsum lath was. And here is our gypsum lath. If you're looking and saying that looks like small pieces of drywall, you would be correct. And we're going to get a lot deeper into this, but what do you know? When you add a paper facing to gypsum, that paper facing likes to mold. You're looking at mold there. So as we just saw in my own house, these are essentially 16-inch tall pieces of drywall. And what that allowed the plasterers to do is to skip that first coat and skip the lath. So instead of nailing up a bunch of mesh or a bunch of wood strips, they can now nail up 16-inch tall pieces of drywall. It's much faster, it's much flatter, and it's just an overall much faster system because they've skipped an entire step. The lath and first coat is now one thing, and then they just have to do 2 coats on top of that, and they're finished. But as we saw, what is the problem with that? It's the paper facing, all right? The same problem we have today. The paper facing on drywall, even though the gypsum core doesn't mold, the paper facing does, because paper is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs water, but it can't store very much, so it molds really quickly. In fact, mold loves paper. It might be one of its top food choices. But we don't really see big mold problems in our 1930s to 1950s homes where this becomes really popular. So you see, the downfall happens in steps. The first step is the gypsum lath, right? Because it's got the paper facing. Let's look at the next one. In case I haven't clarified yet, gypsum board or drywall is very vapor open. So if you're thinking, well, it's vapor closed, that's not the problem. Let's go to the first downfall. In 1950, we start switching to just using joint compound. So that does the first thing that really takes away from our houses. It makes our walls to where they are not tough. You see, this may have the ability to mold on the back because we have a gypsum lath, but you're not going to put your fist through this. That 2 layers of plaster on the top of that gypsum board is very tough. So we still have toughness up until we switch to that joint compound and just drywall. People were not punching through walls pre-1950. Our next big downfall happens right around the same time. So around World War II, the types of paints we use to finish our walls changes. Before that era, we're using pretty natural mineral-based paints. They're breathable. Vapor can move through them, all right? So we've got our lime washes, we've got our milk paints, and milk paint is essentially casein mixed with lime. Casein is from cow's milk. We've got our linseed oil paint. Linseed oil is from the flaxseed, all right? Flax oil is the food grade version of linseed oil. After World War II, we start moving towards our petrochemical companies making paints from petroleum products, all right? All of the paints we use today are essentially forms of plastic. Plastic is from petroleum. So we've got our oil-based paints. They're some of the first versions of this. Then we've got our acrylic and latex-based paints that come in next, which are oftentimes water-based. Still plastic, though, at the end of the day. And what do we know about plastic? It doesn't let the moisture come through. It blocks it. So when we finish our wall with one of these more modern types of paint versus the old natural kind, we now start to reduce the ability of that wall to dry. So a wall that was incredibly vapor open goes down to being a class 3 or maybe even a class 2 vapor retarder, depending on how many coats of paint are on it. And our next downfall happens right after this. In the late 50s and 60s, we switched from balloon framing to platform framing. Now, balloon framing was actually quite dangerous, and it's probably a good thing that we switched. Here's the only difference. In a balloon framed house, we've got our 2 stories here, first story, second story. These studs run all the way from the bottom to the top of the house. There's no break in them. Whereas our modern platform framing, we frame one floor, we stop it, and then we frame the other floor on top of it. What that does is it closes off these stud cavities. Now, these stud cavities allowed a bunch of air to flow through the house. I mean, the air could just flow all the way from the basement or crawl space up to the attic, which is great for drying things out, but it is pretty horrible for fires, because if a fire starts down here, it can make its way up and burn the entire house down much faster than if you have platform framing where it has to go through here and it has to go through here. We didn't just do this for fire coats, though. We also did it because we were losing our old growth forest and our ability to cut these really long studs. In the last downfall of the drywall system is in the late 70s and 80s when energy codes come into place. They require us to put insulation inside of the cavities. So now that means the air cannot flow freely, and that whatever gets in there is much more likely to be trapped because there's not room for air to move around and evaporation. We have also started putting OSB on the outside of the house, reducing the ability to dry outwards. That could be its own downfall, but I didn't make it one. So now the trap has been fully set. We have filled the cavity with insulation so air can't flow. We've also quit balloon framing so air can't flow. We've also put finishes on both the outside and the inside of the house through OSB and through latex-based paints to where drying potential is reduced. And then we put a layer of paper in there to be stuck with whatever gets in there. This is a great recipe for mold, from air leakage that's carrying moisture or from leaks in the siding or in the window. Old houses could oftentimes get a leak, but they dried so well that no mold ever grew. I mean, look at some of your woodwork outside. If you have a wood deck, is it moldy? Probably not. Maybe it is. Maybe some in the shade are, but it can dry out, and that's why it won't mold. So let's look at what we can do besides complain so that our homes are healthy and they last a long time. Number one, let's talk about mold-resistant drywall. I hope you haven't clicked off the video at this point because this is really, really important. We need to talk about different types of it. One, we've got a regular drywall, all right? Gypsum core, paper face. Two, we've got our treated, mold-resistant drywall. T is for treated. This is the same as regular drywall, but we've added chemicals to the outside to make it to where it won't mold. What are those mystery chemicals? I don't know. And you know my theory. If it's in your house, it will get in your body. I don't want your mystery chemicals. And lastly, we have inorganic drywall. All right, this is drywall that's got the same gypsum core, but instead of trying to treat it to prevent the mold, we use something like fiberglass on this outside shell here. And you know what fiberglass does not do? It does not feed mold. If you want to use mold-resistant drywall, I highly recommend that you do not use the treated one. Use something that actually won't grow mold just because it won't feed mold, not because we sprayed it with mystery chemicals. I don't think you need to use this stuff in your entire house, all right? But what I would do, and this is bare minimum here, I would use this inorganic drywall in the wet areas, all right? So put it in the bathroom, put it in the laundry room, and maybe put it around where your wet areas are in the kitchen. The next thing we can do, guys, is we can use wood plank. Wood paneling with the tongue and groove on it is an excellent wall finish. Super tough, super durable. Moisture can dry through it extremely well, and it's not as expensive as you'd think. I got this stuff off Marketplace for like $1.50 a square foot. Now, it was a little rough, and it's harder to put on than you would think. But this is an awesome option to get rid of some drywall in the house. Use this instead. It's very DIY friendly. The only thing you don't want to do is what I did in the other room with it. Let me show you. When I did this room, I knew nothing about healthy building. I was just starting to get into it. So what did I do? I slapped Home Depot paint on it, all right? Now, there's a chemical concern with that, but really what I did is I reduced its ability to dry because I put a layer of plastic over it. If I was doing it again, I would use probably a linseed oil paint, or I would try out a milk paint. I've never actually used either of them, but I'm going to, and that would keep its ability to dry. The other thing you need to know about using plank is that air can move between the cracks. If I've got drywall or I've got plaster, you know, it's a continuous surface. It's continuous all the way around. And what this does is stop airflow. Whereas in here, you can see there's all sorts of areas where the air can move through. And in the winter, these things shrink way, way up and these gaps open up. Now, what's the big deal with some airflow? We want our houses to breathe after all. Wrong, all right? Now, I know some people are getting mad. I get people who are mad every time I say this, and I used to believe it myself, so I understand. But we don't want our houses to be able to breathe air, okay? We want them to be able to dry. We want them to be vapor open. What I didn't get before, when I used to believe that houses needed to breathe, meaning air needed to be able to flow through, was how much moisture the air can deposit inside of a wall. You get moist air and it leaks through the cracks here, and you've got an air leak in the roof, which you will if you have a vented attic. I mean, it is purposely leaked. You're gonna suck all sorts of moisture up through here, and if it gets moist enough in there, you could have a mold problem. So if you're gonna use paneling like this, you need to incorporate a smart vapor barrier. A smart vapor barrier is going to look a lot like Tyvek would, but don't use Tyvek for this, all right? It's going to be able to open and close based on how much humidity is in the air, kind of like wood does. Wood swells up when it gets moist so that it can dry. The pores open up. Well, we've got smart vapor barriers that can do that too. And what you do is you install it on the wall and you detail it really well so that the air is not being able to leak through. That means you got to tape the seams, and that's going to allow vapor to dry through, but it's going to prevent air from going through uncontrollably and causing a moisture problem where you can't see it. The last thing I'll throw out there is you could learn to plaster. It's gonna be really hard to find someone in your area who does plaster, would be my guess. Maybe if you're in a really big city like New York City, might not be too bad. But if you're in a smaller town or a smaller city, good luck. Also, they're probably gonna charge an arm and a leg. So if you got the budget, awesome. But if you don't, you could watch some YouTube videos and you could figure it out. That's what I'm gonna do on my house. I'm sure it's much harder than it looks, but I'm looking forward to it. I can already feel my shoulders hurting. If there is a will, there is a way, guys. You can do it. If this sort of thing interests you, I've made a free guide to healthy building materials. It's linked down in the description below. Click that link, put your email in, it'll shoot over to you. Don't worry, I don't spam you. I have almost never sent out an email, but I think I'm gonna send one out this week. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Until next time.